Hello everyone, welcome to episode 6 of Last Minute FPL. I'm Sasank. This is Vikas. Hi Vikas, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you for tuning in. Here to provide you some last minute tips, tricks, and stats so that you can make the best of your week.
This is a very exciting week. A lot of wildcards activated, including all three teams on this podcast. So let's dive right into it. Um, we'll start with last week's points. I finished top of the table last week with 73 points. I did take a 4 point hit. Unfortunately, yet another transfer that didn't work out. I ended up taking a hit to get Salah in. And turns out my Saka to Son move would have done fairly better. And what this also meant was my Gabriel to Robertson move, which I did in the previous week, was with the assumption I wouldn't get Salah, and that didn't work out well at all. So I think above average week. I'm happy to be in the top 2 million at this stage. But yeah, things could have gone better.
Yeah, lovely week for you. Like even with the 4 point hit not being optimal, with Smith Rowe, Konza, Henderson, really pulling you through. 73, even with the minus 4 point hit, love to see the green arrow there.
Yeah, and I think when Konza's header went in, when his goal popped up on my screen, I mean, those are the moments that you really enjoy in FPL, right? Like, and also Smith Rowe getting the return.
He's been a hero for your team. Like I mean, he's done so well. Like one of the players that really excelled in terms of like being an enabler and doing well.
Yeah, definitely. And Joao Pedro, though, less the less said about him, the better. Didn't work out two good games. But we'll move towards your team. Slightly below average week, 59 points. Palmer captaincy coming through. How did you find your week?
Terrible. Like in the sense that the transfer I made seemed to be like really bad. I got Aina to prop up my bench because everyone is going to get zero in my bench. I had a really weak bench, and it just turned out that Aina got zero as well. So the whole transfer was just like pointless. I could have done probably something more high impact. Really happy with Rogers finally coming through with those 10 points. I think he's been playing really well but dodging points, so just really happy with that. But apart from that, it's just like the players that I have that others don't have not doing well. I think that's just been the story of the season. Those picks have not been great so far or have not come through.
Yeah, I think Rogers with those two late assists is another of those FPL moments, right, where you have that burst of happiness. And I think you were a bit unlucky that Jota missed out on the Bournemouth game. Another occasion where Diaz ran riot, and it looks like pecking order is definitely Diaz above Jota now.
The bright spot of this team is just that I don't need to see this team again with the wild card.
I mean, it's not that bad, but yeah, like I think a couple of weeks where you got a bit unlucky, and yeah, it's a good time to refresh it with the fixture turn. One team that's doing even worse is the AI team, not having a good time without Haaland in it. I think this is a week where it wasn't even like a bad captaincy pick or anything, just all blanks all around. Mateta in was the transfer it made, and he got subbed at halftime. Uh, and I guess other than the double Liverpool clean sheet, not much going for it.
Yeah, looks like the AI team is finally taking some punishment for being extremely different. But who knows? This might be just the long game that it's playing.
Yeah, talking about extremely different, we'll look at the wildcard team of the AI, and it's wildly different from what we would be picking. Uh, but let's look at the mini league standings. The last minute FPL mini league. League ID is on the code if you want to join. Varun continues to stay right at the top, and yeah, I think like I've moved a bit higher. I'm mid table now. Um, but yeah, I think there's not much in it points wise between you and me, but you and the AI team are 14th and 15th currently.
Yeah, I'm locked in a deep battle with the AI team, and that's going to be the story of the season, maybe.
Yeah, interesting to see that Hashdeep is the one propping up at the bottom. Historically, he's been such a legendary manager, winning multiple titles in a row. So it'll be interesting to see how he deals with the second half of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't count him out. He could easily win. He's a legend of the game.
Absolutely. Let's look at some of the games that happened last week. What game stood out to you in the last week?
I really enjoyed the 3-0 Chelsea victory on West Ham. I think it's been like it's been flip flopping a lot on Jackson because of the depth of the squad with Nkunku. He's got a hat trick midweek, by the way. So Jackson played really well, 2 goals. Nkunku hat trick midweek. So who's gonna start? Don't know. Like, but I think the competition right now is really high. Jackson is the starter, um, but I think the right now Chelsea are purring from an attacking perspective. Um, it, I think it bodes well for Palmer. I think more than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson with a 16 pointer, that's like the kind of stuff you dream about. And I think one shout out I forgot to give on the mini league slide was with Sampy getting over 90 points with Jackson and Diaz. Some of those brave picks who we advised against in the last 2-3 weeks. Good thing that he ignored us and he really shot up in the rankings. The game that I watched a lot of was the Liverpool Bournemouth game with Salah captain and with Trent and Robbo. I was hoping for a drubbing, and it kind of was. But Salah, unfortunately, with just the assist. Overall, though, I think this was an example of, Bournemouth had a lot of chances. It felt like they could score, but Liverpool was so clinical. And by the end of the game, you felt like Liverpool should have scored 2, 3 more. I think that's kind of unfortunate for the smaller teams. You could see that Bournemouth was doing the best they can, but it could have easily been a 5-0 or a 6-0, which is kind of unfair to them. And in terms of FPL players, I think all across the board, like Robertson could have had assists, Trent finally getting attacking returns. Salah looked off it, to be honest. He looked a bit shaky. He was getting tackled a lot. Diaz was unbelievable. Like he missed 2 chances before he finally got his first goal. But he was just dribbling through players, taking on shots himself, long range shots that were saved. Um, yeah, I think if he keeps his spot, and I think he should because currently he's probably the most informed Liverpool player. His price is a joke, honestly.
Yeah, extremely tempting. Like with this pricing. Maybe we can talk a bit about the big games. City versus Arsenal. We got a bit of that, and I think in City, I thought the first half, Man City, even though it was 11 against 11, they played exceptional. Like City were exceptional from the start. Haaland again on it. I think Arsenal did play without the ball for a long time. It actually reminded me a lot of the old Mourinho teams where they were like really tight and like really physical, tall players, bullies all over the pitch. Kind of like bodes well maybe like when you're thinking of Arsenal defense moving forward. Um, at, but again, like I think towards the end of the game, Arsenal just dug in. It was one of those games where they just dug in and then got that goal back to equalize.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, towards the end, City really piled on the pressure and it paid off in stoppage time. But I think, yeah, I agree with what you said. Till Arsenal scored that first equalizer, and it was a free goal almost. Like, what a shot from outside the box. Till then, it looked like City were a class above, and Haaland getting his goals so casually, just, splitting the defense, and, it made it felt like it felt like City were going to maintain the 100% record, but credit to Arsenal, despite being down to 10 men, and that was a harsh red card. Who knows how the game would have turned? But also Arsenal, I think, they have this other side to them that probably City doesn't. Like you said, that Mourinho style, that digging in deep. They have these big defenders. Yeah, at least the title race could, if City had won, we would have just started writing it in the books already that City are going to win their 5th title, and it'll be interesting to see how Arsenal does in their easier games.
I think one of the big callouts in this game is Rodri's injury, and it's curious to see how that's going to play out, especially with Rico Lewis and some of the other City players that they're considering going forward.
One more game I want to talk about before we move on is the Palace United game. United again flattering to deceive. They did have a lot of chances, especially in the first half. Henderson with a string of saves. I think, I mean, he definitely has something against United, given the way he left. Um but yeah, it's a little like this has been happening for a while now. Honestly, I don't really rate Ten Hag as a manager. I don't want to call call out for his sacking or anything, but I just don't agree with a lot of decisions that he makes. And in midweek in Europe again, we drew. The goal that they conceded was pretty bad. So I know that a lot of people are considering United defensive assets. I personally wouldn't go there. And yeah, I think it's one win in 8 European games now, and they've pretty much been in the Europa League. It's only in the Ronaldo era that they won a bunch of Champions League games.
Yeah, admittedly, I've not seen much of United yet this season, but data-wise, they're top 5 for attack, and I think we'll get to that probably
Yeah.
in the next slide.
Yeah, I mean, let's just get right into it now. Team attacking data. Once again, United's always going to be in the green, at least for the foreseeable future, as long as they don't keep finishing their chances. 1.92 XG per 90, but just one goal per game. And when you're getting just one goal per game, any attacking player is unlikely to be involved in that one goal. So yeah, it's not exciting from an FPL point of view. What other teams stand out for you?
I think Bournemouth is very interesting. I mean, I test they're playing really well, dangerous. I think Semenyo has looked amazing, like from just how dangerous he is in and around the box. So Bournemouth stands out, especially with they're pretty good fixtures coming up as well, and Tottenham. I think we'll get to Tottenham probably when we're discussing the wildcards, but they do have some good fixtures coming up as well, and it's good to see the attacking data for Tottenham. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tottenham and Bournemouth both have good fixtures coming up, and I will heavily feature in wildcard teams. Yeah, I'm a little wary of. So I just happened to catch the Bournemouth game, and they looked so exciting. I'm a bit wary of overestimating them based on whatever games I'm seeing. But with the data backing it up, that's a good sign. Yeah, I think that's why we put these tables together to try being objective about it. And when the data backs up your eye test, you get that confirmation bias and you feel good about it. One team though that I want to call out here is Everton. They're averaging just about one goal per game, one XG per game. A lot of us are looking at players like Calvert-Lewin. Do you think that it's more of hope because of an easy run of fixtures, or do you feel like he can get that one goal in one return in 2 games?
I think with Calvert-Lewin, it's more of he's just like 5.96 million on penalties probably. So he's just that player along with Wood, like a Wood for example, to just enable the rest of the team. So with him, even if he gets one return in 2 games, I think it's good to own personally.
Yeah, one return in 2 games would be fantastic. But probably you're right. Like, since he's enabling the rest of the team, maybe even one return in 3 games would be like, acceptable. Unless he gets like a string of 5 or 6 blanks, I think it's okay. Going towards the defensive stats now. Yeah, I think this table is kind of taking shape. You're seeing the same trend. One thing that I've noticed here again, Arsenal and Liverpool are the two teams that we've been identifying as overperforming for a while, and I think Arsenal kind of showed why they're in this chart, as highlighted in red. They defend extremely well. Like the way they put up a resistance against City in the second half, it shows you that they have that grit. And I think we'll be now with easier fixtures, we'll definitely be stacking up on some of their defenders, and I think that was nice to see the character.
Yeah, agree. I think they just seem like a team built for clean sheets. They didn't get a clean sheet, of course, in the City game, but like the rest of the games, they just seem so difficult and intimidating to play against. Essentially, the defenders are tall, big, strong, even their midfielders. So definitely bank on Arsenal there. Forest still maintaining their data, even though they conceded quite a few this week, and they're again pretty interesting on the wildcard because they also show up with pretty good fixtures. moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, and I think not much else to call out here. There will be a bunch of cheaper defenders in wildcard teams, but those are enablers, and you don't really expect too much from them. Many of them will be on our first bench. So yeah, I wouldn't expect too many clean sheets other than the big teams.
The standout team is Man City. I would love to own City defense, but apart from Guardiola, it's really hard to pinpoint who would start. But actually, if you look at City's defense, they don't actually have too much depth. They have maybe five, six players in the defense, but someone may miss out. And I think as long as they're okay to have those occasional players sitting out, it's the best team to own, I think, from a defensive perspective.
Yeah, I think City is always up there data wise. It's always been a case of who's going to play. But like you said, I think people like Rico Lewis could nail down a spot depending on where he plays. And Walker has been looking good since he came back. And of course, you have Edison and Guardiola. Maybe Guardiola hasn't justified his price point yet. But Edison is always someone you know is going to start. So if you have that extra million and you want to go there and just have a set and forget, that's a good option.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's look at next week's fixtures. Standout game in terms of big game, United Spurs. Never know what to expect there. I wouldn't be surprised with a big win either way, because both teams tend to be pretty unpredictable. What game are you looking forward to the most?
I think Arsenal Leicester, just from purely FPL points and attacking perspective. I'm again torn on whether to double up on Arsenal's attack, but if I do, then that's going to be extremely exciting because I presume that everyone's going to own Saka. Then I also really do like the Bournemouth Southampton game, especially when I'm thinking of owning Semenyo. I think that's a game again which, given the data we saw from Bournemouth, it could turn out to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think the game that I really am looking forward to is the Wolves Liverpool game. Currently, I don't have any attackers on my wildcard draft, but it's changing every few minutes. But Wolves have been very poor this season, and Liverpool could rack up the goals because even in a game where they play badly, they get those 2-3 chances and are very clinical. So that could be a big score. And the other game is Chelsea Brighton. I think both teams are exciting in attack. It'll be interesting to see tactically how that plays out. I think Brighton have always been exciting in the last couple of years, but now Chelsea also have that kind of exciting attack. Like it's fun to watch them. So I think that'll be an interesting game. Cool. Let's look at our injury list. There are a few updates that could affect our wildcard team. What are some of the key ones?
Yeah, I think one of the main concerns this week is Raya. Quite a few people looking at Raya on the wildcard. Still unclear whether he's going to be fit for the weekend. One to keep an eye out for the press conferences Friday. The other one is the most recent one is Son, who came off kind of hobbling midweek today during the game, and that looks like a worrying injury. Unclear how long he's going to be out, but if he is out, also has implications on Solanke because he might be on penalties and might become an even more attractive option. Then, of course, we got the Rodri injury. Again, impacts how you're thinking about Rico Lewis, for example. In terms of players who are coming back, we saw DCL, Saka, they were back. Højlund is now back. Maybe he's the person to convert United's chances. Who knows? So these are highlights.
Yeah, and one injury that could affect a lot of people's teams is Joao Pedro. It doesn't look obvious when he'll come back, but at least there's clarity on that front. Unlike the last 2 weeks where we didn't know whether to start him or bench him, so I think like he's just a no-go at this moment.
Okay.
Here's the updated fixture ticker in terms of easiest fixtures. I think what you said about DCL and Wood is because Everton and Forest are right up there in the attacking FDR.
Yeah.
What else are some of the highlights?
Yeah, I think definitely Everton, Forest, given that they have two nailed attackers on penalties, or maybe Wood not as nailed, but two strong attackers on penalties, really, really tempting. I think Man City, as always, great fixtures. one of the best attacks. No one wants to not own Haaland, especially during this run. I think Spurs, again, really strong data from an attacking perspective and pretty good fixtures coming up. Solanke on penalties, I think he's becoming a very, very attractive option on the wildcard. Um, then on the defensive, if you're looking at the defensive fixtures, Forest doing well, good fixtures, strong team to target, one of the best defensive statistics so far. Also, Aston Villa. Villa have are right up there. Konza has shown to have some attacking threat as well. So again, they do have these enablers where you're looking at like filling out your wildcard team. I think they're still a pretty strong option to own.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one for me to see Villa in green. Konza hasn't been getting the clean sheets, but yeah, he's someone I am strongly looking at for that third or fourth defender spot, competing with the likes of Dunk or any of those other 4.5 mids. And of course, he gave me the happiest moment of my season so far. So maybe I'll just stick with him after seeing them in green here.
Well, one other team to call out here is Brentford. Good fixtures coming up. They're showing up right up there for both attacking and defensive. They won't have the best underlying data so far, but that could change. It's still a small sample size and very fixture dependent so far.
Yeah, and they've been showing up in defense as well for a lot of models that I've been seeing online too. Likes of Flecken and Pinnock are strongly featuring in a lot of database teams. So I'm not surprised to see them up there. Cool. Let's look at the hardest fixtures now.
Yeah, I think here the one that stands out, and with increasing difficulty is Newcastle. So I think still owning Isaac, it's time to kind of cut the loss there. Few teams that still are targetable. Liverpool's strong data, even though fixtures are stiffening up. Still a team to consider. Bournemouth as well, and I think this is where some of your apprehension also comes, because it's not the most straightforward of fixtures. Maybe unreliable, but again, a team to consider from an attacking perspective. They again show up only on the attacking side, so not a team that you may want to go on for their defense. Then one of the other teams that surprisingly show up on the attacking data is Man United. So Bruno is again in my thoughts. Like, his fixtures turn game week 8, so he's again someone in my thoughts, someone I'm keeping some money to possibly jump to at some point in the future.
Yeah, a couple of points to what you said. One, yeah, Isak, I think it's time to go. He didn't score on his birthday, and I think that's a very bad sign, because usually players always return on their birthdays. Bournemouth, yeah, I think at the price points that Tavernier and Semenyo are, it's okay to bench them when the fixtures get tough, like the likes of Rodgers on the bench to come on. So I think they're still great options. They could really outperform their value. Bruno, I mean, he was the first player I sold as soon as I activated the wildcard. I just don't want that double sadness of United and FPL, and I think like that's the one decision that I completely regret. I mean, of course, the Gabriel to Robertson move too, but I think yeah, he's always there in the data, but watching him both in midweek and last weekend, he does look a little off it. Like, he's not. He's been, misplacing his passes. He's looking a bit frustrated. United are very reliant on him, so he's definitely feeling the pressure. But now Mount is back. Not the most exciting sentence, but let's see how they play. But I don't want the extra FPL investment for sure.
Yeah. Very quickly, the other team that clearly shows fixtures stiffening up is Brighton, but given João Pedro just conveniently got injured, I guess that he's anyway a sell there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Cool. Let's look at our position-wise analysis. We'll start with the forwards. I think our recommendations for buy are identical, and for good reason. Like, I've changed my mind on Wood, clearly. He was in avoid for a while, but it looks like he's the first choice. He's going to play. But I would slightly prefer Calvert-Lewin because he's more nailed, and he's the only striker they have. Compared to Wood, he has some competition. Both their underlying data is very similar. Even in the projections, AI projections on the left, you see them like one EV apart over 4 weeks, which is not too much. What are your thoughts regarding the players to get?
Yeah, I think very similar thoughts here in terms of like who we are targeting. I would say some of the wildcard players where they can again like provide really good uh, returns, and not too many people own them, are like Jackson, maybe a Watkins. These are players, Havertz as well. Maybe more people are going to go for double Arsenal defense. So these are players that if you want to go a bit different, I think they're pretty exciting picks, and also Havertz is at least is someone I'm considering.
Yeah, I think Havertz could be a good pick. I think the AI team will be happy to hear us say that finally. And Jackson as well. He could be a really good differential. I think a lot of teams do have that Watkins or Havertz or Jackson structure, which would mean making a sacrifice in midfield. But I think it could be worth it because the ceiling is so high. Watkins already, if you look at his data, he felt like he started slowly, but he's already outperforming his XG and he's got zero 0.8 returns per game. And that's back to his regular self, just with 2 good games. So yeah, I think that's a good sign, although his price is tricky. But which is why I've kept Duran and avoid. He's always been coming on. I don't think, and it feels like that's the best case right now, getting 30 minutes and he might get your return, but there are better bench options. Like Rogers is starting regularly, so that's why I've kept him in avoid.
Agree. I think on the sell side, I think we are both we spoke about it. Pedro, Isaac, these are players probably quite widely owned. It's just not the right time to own them anymore.
Yeah, and one thing before we move on from forwards that really stands out to me is Solanke's stats. He's got zero 0.8 xG per game, and we know that he is capable of those really high scoring seasons at Bournemouth. So yeah, I think again signs pointing to getting him if the structure lets you. I think till Pedro got injured, I was still trying to keep him as the third forward and keep him on the bench. But now I've taken out some money from midfield to put Solanke in my team, especially after seeing these numbers.
Agree. Yeah, and with if he's on penalties, that it's even more attractive.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Let's look at midfield data now. Yeah, I think the thing that really stands out in midfield is Luis Diaz for me. And he's getting 1.2 returns per game, keeping up with the likes of Salah. It remains to be seen if he keeps getting the minutes, but that's the big question that I have. Do I keep him in my wildcard team? He was benched midweek, so I think he'll start again, and against a Wolves team, he could again, with the form he's in, get a couple of returns.
Yeah, hey, he's been exceptional. Uh, do you still think there's a little bit of a risk with rotation? I don't think so with the form, but um, yeah, he's someone that I think I will definitely own on the wild card for sure.
Yeah, I don't think at most I think he'll miss one game, right? Like in 4 or 5. I don't. I feel like it's a spot to lose. Gakpo did get a brace in midweek, but he's been playing so well. I don't think it would be fair to drop him. I would personally drop Salah before I dropped him. Like he's just such an X factor player. Um,
I think even here we have kind of similar players in our recommendation. One player that's standing out here we should talk about is Madison, especially given that we're speaking about Spurs fixture. I notice kind of getting back to his best. He's playing really well, creating some good chances. I think he's one player that I've also added on my buy list, especially if you're thinking of going for the midfield Spurs option there.
Yeah, and I think he's highly rated both by the AI team and he's right at the top of the statistics table. Like he's outperforming the likes of De Bruyne, Salah, and Luis Diaz in XGI. The only thing is he sometimes gets those early subs at the 60-minute mark, 70-minute mark. But he's a quality player. It's just that he's more of a creator and he's not going to be the shot hogger. So yeah, but if he's a great option at his price, I think that's a good recommendation.
I think one player we should touch upon. I've also considered him on the wild card is McNeil for the very kind of budget midfield option. I think very reasonably priced, what's up 5 million or so. Um, Great fixtures by Everton, so I think he's genuinely an option for saving some money and competing with Rogers, for example, for a spot.
Yeah, fully agree. I think the the AI team, he showed up in a bunch of drafts too. He's 5.4 million, and that's a really good price. Like he's just 0.2 more than Rogers. He's gonna start every game. Um, yeah, a good call out there. I see we both are not so hot on Salah this week.
Yeah, I think I just put him in as a void, not because I don't think he'll get points. I think he'll probably get double digit haul against Bulls. But if I had to get a premium midfielder this week, it'd probably be Saka, maybe then followed by Palmer. Just because I can then also spread the funds for like a Gabriel or someone, just because of how the fixtures have panned out over the next 5-6.
Yeah, it's purely a team structure thing for me too. Especially once you get Haaland and you get Saka in the team, you're gonna make a lot of sacrifices if you want to keep Salah as well. So that's why I have him in sell, and I've listed avoid for Smith Rowe. He's done really well for me, but I think this is a good time to jump off him.
Yeah, and similarly for me, I listed Son. I think that he's injured. Not sure. He might not be available, but I don't think. I think I'd sell. There are just much better options. An easy move to Saka, for example.
The one player I'm a little curious about how it evolves is Phil Foden. He had such a good season last year, and I'm expecting that there will be a point of time where he starts getting back to his old self. And then it could be a real like it could add another spanner in the works. Like you already have Palmer and Son and Saka and Salah in midfield, and if Foden becomes an option, we could hopefully see a variety of teams.
Agree. And De Bruyne, like if he's back from injury and he's starting week in week out, very very tempting player at 9.5.
And one player we didn't touch upon here is Eze. He's kind of underwhelmed in terms of returns at least, but we both have listed him as keep. What are your thoughts about him?
Yeah, I think it depends. Like if there's a straight shootout between Eze and Mbuemo, I would go for Mbuemo. But if you have a team structure where you need 7-ish million midfielders, then I would. There's nothing wrong in keeping Eze. I see nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think like with Diaz at a similar price, like maybe 1 million more, and with Mbuemo and Semenyo and Rogers and Saka, like it is tough to find a spot for Eze. Currently, I do have him in my team in place of Diaz, but Diaz is such a high upside pick and a low risk option because a lot of people are going to own him. But I wouldn't go out of my way to sell Eze because he's still a good option. Cool, let's go to the defenders. Again, pretty similar recommendations. I wouldn't have thought that Everton defender Mykolenko would be on top of our buy list, but here we are. It's wildcard time and we're looking for some budget options, I guess.
Some fodder, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's just that. Like we're looking at players who we can put in the bench, second, third bench, and they can come on and do a job if they have to. Because I think like one of the things that I want to be aware of during this wildcard phase is having a good 15. Because with accumulating transfers, I think like someone can fill in a week without having to make an urgent transfer. They're just more exciting transfers that can be made without hits. So I think players like Mykolenko, Murillo, like even a Greaves, for example, that you've listed, having them in a situation where they can actually maybe sneak in some points, it's super important, I think, this season.
Yeah, I fully agree because like Greaves and Mykolenko are from Ipswich and Everton, and they're not, and we've consistently shown that their defensive stats are bad, but that greed for that extra 0.2 million, because Mykolenko is 4.3, Greaves is 4.0, that can really set up your first 11. And it's okay if they come on and get you a 2-pointer or a 1-pointer once in a while. You don't and Mykolenko has good fixtures, so he could easily even be someone who gets a clean sheet here and there. And I think what you said about a deep bench is important. And also, one thing I want to be wary of this season is not make too many defensive transfers. It's something like I've thought of in the last few seasons and tried, focusing on midfield and attack, having the stable defense because these are the low upside moves. And also recently burnt by a major defensive transfer. So, like, you want to keep your defense as constant as possible, and players like this will allow you to have five playing defenders because it's tougher to find bench fodders in midfield and forward positions.
Agree. I think one interesting player we have to talk about here is Rico Lewis. One of the players with, I guess, defies the having a stable team with like starters, but also very explosive. And he's looked fantastic, like both on the eye test and on data. Uh, is he someone you're considering in your wildcard?
Yeah, I'm really tempted by him, especially with the Rodri injury. But it's a lot of guesswork at the moment because he didn't play the Arsenal game also, and he played only 45 minutes before that. It's more of hope. So currently he's not in my team because I want to see how it goes. It would be a gift if he nails down a spot, but I'm willing to wait. And if he becomes an option, then even at 4.8 or 4.9, I'm okay to get him later.
Yeah, I have the exact same thoughts. Even at 5 million, like if he does go up, if he's a nailed on Man City defender who's attacking, he's completely worth it. But I think I just don't want to deal with the headache of like a game where you're starting him and you expect a Man City clean sheet, but he comes on for a 1 pointer. That's just like a nightmare. So I just want to avoid that. Not gonna get him, and but yeah, like he could be that exciting pick which brave managers pick and then get their rewards.
Yeah, and the other City defender who's showing up very well in the stats is Walker. Like he's just come back, but he's looking threatening, and he's like risen to number 2 in the defensive stats. Um, are you considering selling Trent to make any money, or he's just a lock?
No, he's a lock because I think I've been finding it hard to find out who to have in my defense, and Trent just feels like a player not to really just overcomplicate, and then that's just like one spot done along with Gabriel, and then it's just like figure out the third playing defender.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts about Trent. I think, yeah, I saw some stat during the Bournemouth game. Trent and Robertson have around 59 assists each in the Premier League, and those are numbers
Pretty ridiculous.
historically you've heard like some of the best midfielders having those many assists. And on top of that, they play for Liverpool, who are so high on clean sheets and their defensive stats. So yeah, I wouldn't overthink it.
I think in Cell, very interesting. You have Guardiola, I have Porro, two genuinely good players. I can go with Porro first. I think just put him in Cell because I'm not sure how much I trust the Spurs defense, and I think getting a clean sheet is very important for defensive points because otherwise I don't think you're going to get bonuses much with forwards almost always securing all the bonuses if they score a goal. So at Porro at 5.5, I would just go for like even a Saliba at 6 or a Guardiola who you ever sell us at 6 rather than a 5.5 Porro where clean sheets are uncertain and attacking returns are also a little bit uncertain because he is staying back a little more than normal this season.
Yeah, I think with Porro, I had the same thoughts in game week 1, and that's why he wasn't in my team because I just don't trust the Spurs defense enough, even though he's so attacking. And with Guardiola, again, it's similar to Salah. It's more of a team structure thing. I just think Trent and Gabriel are locks, and then if you get Guardiola on top of that, your defense will be stacked, and you probably don't have to care about any defensive transfers for a while. But I think that you can drop that position down to someone in the 4.5 range, and that will allow you some more money to be freed up in attack. That's the main thinking process.
Agree.
And I have Mazraoui in avoid. I've already spoken about and also he's 4.6. So for me, if you're spending more than 4.5, like that's really got to justify it. So
I've actually been strongly considering Martinez just because of United's fixtures from 8, and they're a big team. Like I think there is a risk that sometimes we downplay players on big teams because we expect them to be so good, but if they're like mid-table good, we just think that they're really bad. Whereas for a mid-table team, if they're mid-table good, we think those players are perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, and I think United should be considered as a mid-table team right now, given their position in the league. So yeah, I think you're right. Like historically, if we saw 4.6 United defender, we'd think that's a steal. And Martinez is 4.5. And one more thing to note is Varun at the top of the table. He does have Martinez. I don't know if he'll keep him after the wild card, but yeah, it's not a bad option for sure. Like none of these 4.5s are going to make or break your team. So I think those are some of the positions where you can, take your pick.
I mean, even if you just think of United as a mid-table team, like imagine it was Everton, like a 4.5 defender, great fixtures. They just put a United in that place. That's how that's something of Martinez. So it seems reasonable that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. And my only thinking is that when I'm anyway going to make some sacrifices in that position, let me just, like, if it's a 50-50 between two people, let me just go for the cheaper one. And that's why Mikolenko is an option, and Greaves is another option. But yeah, I think if I'm left with a 0.4 or 0.5 in the bank, which I do currently have, I think I have 0.6, then there is a thought process where you can upgrade him. But I personally wouldn't go there. I did that with Bruno, so I'm definitely not doing that.
Fair call.
Is there anyone who's standing out to you in the statistics table? To me personally, other than Walker, it's interesting for me to see people like Mitchell showing up. Like a lot of Palace players are doing well when it comes to stats. I'm just wondering if at some point it's going to explode into returns.
Yeah, don't have them, but really interesting to see this data point. Maybe in the future, one to keep an eye out on if this holds essentially.
Cool. Yeah, and again in the AI projections, it's Liverpool, City, and Arsenal. I think like it's taken shape to a place where those three teams you can kind of rely on clean sheets. Otherwise, go a little budget to enable your team.
Right.
All right, let's go into goalkeepers. Yeah, I think here interesting decisions to be made because premium goalkeepers are on the menu. Definitely, and there also is the option of Sanchez in the goalkeeping spot. I think he's another example of a 4.6 who could be worth it if Chelsea gets their act together. It's almost like having a premium goalkeeper. What are your thinking process for your wild card?
Yeah, I think same thing. Like Sanchez, perfectly reasonable, even though fixtures are getting tougher. But with the goalkeeper, you'll get those save points, and you'll get 3-4 points with Sanchez. So not really worried about that. So Sanchez sells are two keepers I'm considering, especially if Raya is not available and fit.
Yeah, I think for me that's the main dilemma: Sanchez versus Raya. Flecken is an option too. We spoke about Brentford's fixtures. But yeah, I'd really like to own Raya if possible, because last season I had a huge stretch where I had Gabriel and Saliba, and they just kept ticking over. I would not be surprised if like 80% of their easy games they kept a clean sheet because they control games so well. And it's tough to own Saliba given the team structure currently, because Trent is also in the team.
No,
so
I would love to own Raya. If he's fit, he's staying in the team.
Yeah, I think that's the main dilemma that I have on my team, because that also has a knock-on effect in midfield and attack. That 1 million difference, and I think that's a good segue to go into the wildcard teams. So let's quickly start with my team. Currently, I'm on 333 points. I think, again, like there's not much between our teams. I think 15 points at this stage of the season is nothing. Yeah, so this is one version of a team that I have where I do have Saliba in the team. This is what I'm looking at as have 11 players who are exciting to have, where there's no quote unquote sacrifices to be made. It just feels good to feel like you have someone who can really pull it off. I think I'm really happy with the defense here. Double Arsenal defense, Sanchez and Trent. Midfield, the one sacrifice I'm making here is no Luis Diaz. But definitely Eze could make way for him. Sanchez could become Raya, and the Saliba would have to go down to someone like a Konza. Um, but I think I'm pretty set on the rest of the team. Solanke came in only yesterday after the Pedro injury, but I'm really happy to have him. Um, Calvert-Lewin, like we spoke about, is a fodder option. I'm not too excited about him. But Semenyo and Mbuemo, I think I have to start with them. Let's see how it goes. Mbuemo, I'm very happy about. Semenyo is the one who I'm a little 50-50 because the fixtures do turn within a couple of weeks. But I think going into the wildcard, I'm happy with this team.
Yeah, no, this looks really strong and really strong bench as well. So don't have too many concerns here. I think maybe Diaz is the only one who can, if he explodes in the next two games, it's just like those few quick points which you might lose out on. Especially with, I'm guessing it's going to be highly owned on the wild card. So that seems like the biggest risk, but otherwise this team looks really strong. Yeah.
Yeah, and Diaz wasn't in it at screenshot time, but he is currently in my team because he rose in price today. Um, but yeah, I don't know where I'll end up honestly. Eze is someone who is nailed. He's going to play regularly. If he was on pens, it may have clinched it for me. But yeah, that's just those 2-3 positions where I have 50-50.
Nice.
Okay, walk us through your team.
Yeah, so this team could look very different tomorrow because it all hinges kind of like what you said on Raya's injury. Right now I have Raya and Sanchez. That's just want to get Sanchez before the price rise. So I do have like double Arsenal defense with Saka. Raya misses out, might either go to Havertz or Saliba, like kind of like stare in your team. From a forward perspective, I have two fodder forwards, Wood and Calvert-Lewin. Not quite sure how comfortable I am. I really do want Solanke. Again, there might be some shuffle there because those are the three options apart from Haaland that I'm considering: Wood, Calvert-Lewin, Solanke. Midfield, I think I'm more or less quite set. I don't expect to make any changes in midfield. I think that's the 5 players that I will own. So yeah, that's pretty much my team. I still have about $1 million in the bank with this team, which I'm just using it to kind of throw it into the Solanke pool essentially if I change my mind.
Yeah, you can probably, if you wanted, upgrade one of Wood and Calvert-Lewin to Solanke. Are you planning to go in with these keepers, or will one of them become a...
No. So
yeah.
Sanchez will become, one of them will become a Fabianski. It's a question of who.
Yeah, so I think you could probably get Solanke, right, like with this team itself. And then what's behind the Murillo pick? Is it Forest defensive stats?
Forest defensive stats and good fixtures. I think Murillo with Martinez, whose fixtures turn with 8. I think I can just like rotate them around and have that third defender covered there. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like this team, and like the fact that you still have more than $1 million in the bank is really nice. One thing that I might steal from this is playing Rodgers over Calvert-Lewin, because definitely it's the more exciting pick, and Ipswich is the worst team, and I wouldn't want to watch an Everton game hoping for them to score against Palace for sure.
Yeah, I think if I do stay with these 3 forwards, the confusion I have is between Wood and Calvert-Lewin. Palace's defense has not looked so good this season, whereas Fulham have been doing much better. But at the same time, I think Wood is in better form from an attacking perspective. Forest slightly better team than Everton, so that's where I have that small confusion. It just seems like a flip of a coin.
I mean, but yeah, I think it's a pretty luxurious position that we're in, where we're benching a 6 million player. In previous seasons, that would be a no-go. I think Mbuemo, Semenyo, and even Diaz, who's probably you can classify as a premium, being at 7.9, is letting us do that. But yeah, I think both our teams are pretty template, I would say, except for those 1 or 2 decisions. And the one team that's definitely not a template, and I'm excited to see your reaction to this, is the AI's wildcard team. So this was before the Pedro injury, so there will be some funds freed up there, or I have to check whether it wants to downgrade to a bench fodder or what it wants to do. But the main thing is it really rates City's defense. So it's gone.
And it doesn't rate Arsenal's defense.
So it actually does rate Arsenal's defense, but the thing is, it rates its attack even more. So Saka, I mean, we know the AI's love for Havertz. I think that's been clear from Game Week 1. He has dropped a little in the projections, but it prioritizes Saka and Havertz. So that's the one thing. And Gabriel does come behind the City and Liverpool options. I don't mind this defense. Like it's reliable. Trent, Robbo, Guardiola, and Edison. If they keep playing, there's nothing wrong with it. The other, of course, big miss is Haaland. I think a lot of model teams that I'm seeing online, Haaland and Salah don't feature in them. I think they are going for a mix of these mid-price players and going for premiums in midfield, and that's what the AI team is doing as well with Saka and Palmer and Watkins, kind of, or I should just say Palmer and Watkins. That's the comparison that we've been doing before as well. Palmer and Watkins versus Haaland and 4.5 midfielder. So it's actually making that pick with Watkins in attack. But yeah, I mean, of course, like I would be terrified not to have Haaland. What are your thoughts about that decision?
I mean, this team is beautiful. Like honestly, like there are like four premium players kind of on the attack: Saka, Palmer, Luis Diaz. Five, even if you can't Havertz as a premium player in a big team, and Watkins. So five players where with a Haaland you may have only three, Saka, Diaz, and a Haaland or something like that. So you can really see where the money is going in this team. It's really being spread around. Very excited to see how the team is going to do over the next few weeks. I think AI team is very interesting from the perspective that when you look at this team, the way it kind of gets constructed is without having that knee-jerk mentality that humans might tend to have, like Gabriel scoring twice in a row. Probably not going to happen, right? Like another goal is going to come, who knows when.
Definitely not, because now I've got him back.
Yeah, and the AI team will not have such biases.
Yeah,
like it is a team where you don't have those biases, and it's very interesting to see how it's set up.
I think it really hinges on Palmer. It's been pretty big on him throughout the season, and I think that is going to make or break the next few weeks, because a lot of us likely won't have him in favor of Haaland. And I think it's rating him highly for good reason, but the outcome could really be up or down, because he's getting subbed a bit early sometimes, and there's a lot of attacking players to share the goals around with. I think the rest of the team, I am not personally finding anything that I'm okay with having Trent and Robbo. Like they don't have the worst fixtures, and they can always get attacking returns and clean sheets. And double City defense is also a totally okay pick, I feel.
Yeah, agree.
Cool, and that brings us to the end of the wildcard episode. Do like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and join the mini league code at the bottom. Anything to add, Vikas?
Yeah, as always, if you do have any comments, please feel free to share them. Otherwise, see you next week. Hope you all have a really good weekend, and best of luck on the wildcard.
Thank you. Bye.